Liz Pichon, illustrator, London Book Fair author of the day. Welcome to London Book Fair podcast.
Thank you.
You were encouraged to write and draw from a young age, and you still have the scrapbooks, or probably your mum has the scrapbooks. I imagine it was quite a bookish childhood. Who influenced you in particular?
Well, both my mum and dad were probably my mum was a really big reader, and there were always lots and lots of books in the house. It was a very creative house, so there were lots of, there was lots of sewing and drawing and lots of that kind of thing around. And also I've got an older sister as well, and she was very creative. So she bought me my first box of Caran d'Ache crayons, and I can remember sort of really looking after them and thinking they were special, and the colours were amazing. So it was a sort of, so I wasn't a massive reader, but I did have lots of really beautiful books and things around, and like people would buy me, like Lynn would buy me a really nice picture book or something.
So what were your favourites?
Well, one of the favourites that I had, one of the ones that, in fact, it's actually written in there, look, by my mum. To Elizabeth.
1971.
I know. So it's very old. So I remember one of these books. Now and I brought this one out because it was an influence. And they just was Mary Plain and the Bear Pits That Burn. And these are a reissue. I think they were out in the 60s, and they re-jacketed them. But one of the things I really remember is all the drawings and doodles that they used to have. And I just love that part of the books because the actual stories aren't wildly interesting. So I would actually buy these books, and there's another one here, which has got like a whole page. That one's got a whole. So that was just something that I remembered as a child, like absolutely loving.
You responded to.
Yeah, loved it. Yeah. Being able to work it out, and so that was one of the books that was probably more an influence on me than I thought at the time.
Subconsciously, yeah.
Subconsciously, yeah, definitely.
What about people like Roald Dahl?
Absolutely, yeah. The Twits, particularly, really love that. Richard Scarry as well, and also Spike Milligan, Silly Verse for Kids. I love the drawings, and I love the sort of it made it seem possible, writing bits of poetry and doing the kind of drawings that he did.
You studied graphic design, which I guess was a sort of natural thing for you to do, and your first job was with an indie record company, which was quite cool, I guess.
Maybe the American side of jive was it. But I thought this was fantastic. So after I left college, I decided, I was still living at home, and my dad started ringing jobs for me. There was a time like just go out and get something. And I was working the first job I had when I left college, I was working for a textile for two ladies who ran a little boutique up in Belsize Park. So I stayed there for about 9 months and was actively looking for something then, and thought, no, I really need to get something. So that was the first job that I had. And I remember going for the interview and thinking, record company, this will be really exciting. So you go to the reception, and all the walls are covered in gold discs, and it was in Willesden, but they had their own recording studio. And then they took me out of the reception, downstairs, outside, past the bins, into a porter cabin.
This is the glamorous music business life.
That's it. And that's about as good as it got. And then when they decided, I managed to get the job there, and it was just me and one other guy, and we used to do everything. So it's just we did absolutely everything. We did all the covers, photo sessions. So it's quite good training. So if you didn't really know very much about it, which I didn't, so we used to have to follow a project right from the beginning all the way to the end.
How do you work? I mean, how long does it take a character to get from your head to the page, and what sort of medium are you working in?
I think all the time you're constantly gathering ideas all the time. So, for instance, for the Tom Gates books, they started off life as like a scrapbook. It was supposed to be a picture book idea, and it was going to be called All About Me. So it was going to be, so the basis for the very early ideas were there, and then from that got sent out to the publishers and came back again. And they said, we really like the format, but we don't think there's enough of a story. So then I went away and sort of rewrote it. So, and then I did. So some of the characters are there. So, the chapter one. But this is actually a story, completely different. And it's actually, I can't even remember what it's about, but it had drawings and doodles in it. So, in fact, I remember sort of taking it up to my agent who was going to Bologna, and she took it over there, and so people really like the format, but they don't think that the format and the story go together. So then I went away, and then I thought, okay, I'm going to put it in an exercise book, and I just wrote the first chapter, the first part of it, imagining that Tom was going to be writing in there. And the first bit was called Camping Sucks. So it was all about his disastrous holiday, and so all the sort of drawings and doodles. So that started off. And I just imagined that he was on a really disastrous camping holiday.
And that was what got you the first contract?
Yeah.
Or so a series contract?
It was the first. So my agent sent it out to the publishers, and from that I got 7 offers from 7 different publishers.
That was a really exciting moment.
It's never happened. No, I mean, it really has never happened before. So, and then that throws you into a bit of a, okay, because actually, you know, that's all I'd got. I'd got ideas, and I had pretty much a good idea about how I was going to, what I was going to do with it. But it's still that thing of actually sitting down and writing it and thinking, oh, because up until then, I'd only just done picture books.
Are the fonts based on your handwriting in some way?
Yeah, because they decided that they liked the way that I laid it out.
Right.
And they liked the style of it. So we decided to make this is the World Book Day one. So all the font there, all the 2 different fonts, that was all based on my handwriting.
And Tom Gates obviously met with success quite quickly, and already you've won several awards, including the Blue Peter.
Including the Blue Peter, and that's for a different book.
Yes.
So it's not just for book 1, it's The Brilliant World of Tom Gates.
Yes.
So that's picked up. That won the Waterstones in its category, in the Red House in its category, because Patrick Ness won the overall that year. And then Genius Ideas, mostly, that's the 4th in the series, that won the Blue Peter Award as well. So,
what about ebooks and apps as an illustrator? Have you engaged with them particularly? Do they interest you?
Well, I think the World Book Day one has been made into an ebook. I think it was I didn't know it might be quite problematic because of all the doodles and how they were going to do it and how the pages, because I worked quite hard on actually working out how the type goes and where the drawings go. And I know that if you enlarge things, it changes where everything is.
Yes.
So they've had to be quite careful about doing it. But they've done it for the World Book Day, and I think that's worked out quite well. So it probably will get made into ebooks at some point.
Programmes such as Bookstart have made a great difference to children's lives, young children's lives over the last few years. Economic circumstances are making some of these programmes rather difficult, and indeed they're imperilled. Do you think children's imaginations are going to be impoverished as a result if some of them are in fact taken away?
Absolutely. I mean, you think about apart from libraries, or if you've got somebody in your family who's got books around, where do you get them? If you don't come from a family where you've actually got books there, like I was given books as a child, I went to libraries or books in the schools. If you don't know it's there, then how are you going to access it? Because there's fewer and fewer places that you can go where children can actually choose their own book and know what to choose or just enjoy it. I just think anything that gets them reading so that they can access them at all is brilliant. And when you go and do school visits, sometimes people get a bit worried about, the children coming in with money to buy the books. So some schools, they have loads of copies of your books in the libraries. So the kids will come in with their library cards. So at least you do an event and then they get the chance to go out and actually look at it. Yeah. So, there are ways of doing it, but I just think, it is really, it is really tricky, I think.
You go into schools a lot, as we said. Do you see lots of meddling with kids' education, in fact not enough time for imaginative work?
You hear that all the time. That's one of the things that I try and, by showing the children how I actually create the books and how I get the ideas, I always say to them, I've found a way of telling my stories. I wasn't particularly bookish or, I wasn't particularly brilliant at writing when I was at school, but I found a way to tell stories, which includes drawings. And I think the kids are responding to that because it's quite accessible, because they can see themselves doing it. And the fact that I do it in exercise books and the way I work as well, like I just do, I draw out some of the pages here. So that's a page from one of the books. So I just write it out and include the drawings. So it doesn't seem like something that they can't do themselves. I show them how to do a sort of a rough cover. And I say to them afterwards, you can do that. And they'll go, no. But then actually the drawings that they come up with are amazing and they're incredible in such a really short period of time.
I suppose between the demands of ambitious parents with after-school activities and the restrictions of school timetables and the lure, of course, of electronic gadgets, do children sit down and draw and create in a way? Do they have time to be imaginative at home?
Well, you hope so. You really hope so.
Yeah.
I think it depends. That is one of the things that I've done in the books, is that I don't write about technology very much, and I don't put things in. And I've put things in there like how to make a paper banger, which is something that I remember doing with Beano, and the kids love it. So it's just having you know, with a book, you don't have to recharge it. You know, they can just, it's all that stuff, you can pop it in your pocket. And so I hope that there's enough there that actually keeps them engaged, and you know, they can really, they can see all the different things that they can do. So it's not just this. In the next book I'm doing, I've got banana doodles as well, which is that's, if you poke a banana, it makes a little hole in it, and it goes black straight away.
Yeah.
So I've actually got lots of designs and doodles and things. And I think it's quite fun to do that. Yeah. Exactly.
Now, I think you said you're somewhat dyslexic.
Yes.
Did that hinder you as a child? Must have done to some degree, because it was much less recognised.
Well,
and you know, is it something you take account of when you write?
I didn't realise, looking back, I mean, I just think, you know, I always thought I was just really rubbish at spelling, which I was, and couldn't remember things. And if you ask me how to spell there now, I'd still have to write it down. There's still things that I just can't remember what to do. And art was always slightly treated as a bit of a remedial subject, you know. Yes, you're very good at art, but actually you really need to do some proper work, you know. But no, I didn't consciously think about it. But my son Zach, I mean, he was really severely dyslexic. And he didn't learn to read until he was 11, and we had the whole, you know, statementing process, going to tribunal, and eventually, with his school support, because they didn't think he should be at that school either, he ended up going to a specialist dyslexic school. So, and you can see, you know, you just have to find ways around, you know, the problems with dyslexia. There's always, I just said, you know, it's always going to be there, but you just have to find ways around it.
Now, you're author of the day on Wednesday. I don't think you've been to London Book Fair before, but what do you have planned, if anything? Are you looking forward to it?
I'm not. I think I'm going to be doing some sort of chats. I'm going to look around. I think I've got a programme of things to be doing, but I'm really keen to go and have a good look around. I've been to Bologna, but I said I haven't never been to the London Book Fair, so looking forward to meeting people and just generally soaking it all up.
Liz Pichon, thank you very much indeed.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.